Today, I am going to discuss role, growth and contribution of service sector in Indian economy. Before embarking into this topic, I would like to discuss the sectoral composition in a particular economy. What is sectoral composition? Sectoral composition is different sectors with different activities. The primary sector, the first sector, then the secondary sector, the industrial sector, and the third sector is the service sector, which is also known as tertiary sector in the economy. With the growing of an economy, sectoral composition also changes. The nations grow with change in sectoral composition. The three-stage growth theory, which is primarily initiated by Clark and Fisher way back in 1940s, where they have discussed the change in the pattern of the economy with the change in the sectoral composition. At the first phase of development, there will be primary sector dominates the economy. And all the resources of the economy will be used in the primary activities, agricultural activities, mining and quarrying activities. Thereafter, in the intermediate stage of development, there will be a shift of resources from primary sector to the secondary sector, which is the industrial sector or the manufacturing sector. In the third stage of development, there will be a boom in the third sector, which is the service sector or the tertiary sector. Now, according to this doctrine, countries develop phase by phase. In developed countries, we can see this kind of sectoral changes. But the experience of Asian countries is something different. In Asian countries, the intermediate stage is somewhere absent. So from the primary sector, there is a shift to the tertiary sector, and manufacturing sector was not that much grown. So if we discuss the sectoral composition in the economy, then we have to discuss this phase or three-stage growth theory. Now, as we have discussed the sectoral pattern, the primary sector consists of agriculture, mining, quarrying. Then the secondary sector, particularly the industrial sector, heavy engineering, light engineering, energy production, food processing, etc. And then comes the service sector. And in the umbrella of this service sector, there are financial services like banking and insurance, health services, social services, educational services, welfare services. And with the growth of the economy, all these services are needed and all these services grow. In India, what we see, the population of India mostly employed in agricultural sector. That is the primary sector. And this is the reason of underemployment in Indian economy. As the manufacturing sector since independence didn't grow in that much better way, the services sector took the role of employment absorbing sector. Huge amount of people are engaged in this service sector. Now, if we look into the sectoral growth rates, we can see agricultural sector grew at the time of post-independence period at the rate of 2.1%. Whereas the share of manufacturing was 5.3% and the share of services was 4.5%. Now, if we divide the post-independence period in several phases, then we can see that the share of agricultural sector declines over time and share of services sector grows. Now, the growth of the services sector is not that cyclical and it is stable enough, whereas the growth of manufacturing sector is very much cyclical. So, the services sector has the potential to be independent sector and have the potential to grow in a very good rate. Now, the growth of service sector is possible in any stage of development due to some reasons. The first reason is zero inventory requirement in the sector. That is, whenever and wherever you want to start the services, you can start. So there is no requirement of huge amount of raw materials. So easy startup is there. And then in service sector, flexible working hours are there. So it is easy to work over there. And service sector is adaptable to changes. If there is any kind of technological change, then there will be no problem in the service sector. Service sector quickly absorb the change and adapt to that change. And in case of product-based sector, that is particularly agricultural sector and manufacturing sector, there is a problem to adapt very quickly. And there is a huge potential for the service sector for creating job. Now, we will discuss the role of the service sector. The service sector facilitates the process of industrialization. For industrialization, what we need? We need resource mobilization. We need raw materials. We need banking facilities. And for all these purposes, there must be a strong, robust service sector. Service sector facilitates financing, skill building, raw material delivery, finished good delivery through transportation and communication. Then for balanced regional growth, there must be proper presence of services sector. In northeastern region of our country, proper transportation and communication will facilitate industries as well as tourism over there. So, in northeastern regional growth, we need proper services present in the region. Northeastern Region Vision 2020, which is an initiative of Government of India, government is trying to develop educational facilities, skill development in this particular area for the growth of the people in this particular underprivileged region. So services, education services, skill building services are very much necessary for the balanced regional growth. Then for the market expansion, proper communication and transport facilities must be there for delivery of raw materials as well as delivery of finished or semi-finished goods. This service sector helps agriculture as well. Again, for the transportation and communication, financing services, agriculture needs service sector help. Thereafter, it helps in modernization through proper knowledge building, skill building. The services sector helps in modernization of the other sectors. Improvement in standard of living is possible by providing better services in the field of education, health, banking, insurance. Now, the Human Development Index could be better through the help of the service sector. Then mobilization of financial resources. It may be public, it may be private. So, through social infrastructure building, through health services, there must be mobilization of resources. Private sector also allocates finance from households through savings and through banking services, through other financial services, it will develop the resource, the financial resource in the economy. There must be institutional credit development. We must have institutional credit because through primary lending from the Mahajans or some informal sector, which is not at all good for the economy. So proper banking services, proper insurance services should be there. And there must be proper institutional financial services. Thereafter, employment generation. Services sector generates employment in financial services, in non-financial services, in public services. So there is huge potential of this sector for generating employment. Now we are going to the international trade arena, where the international trade can be boosted by proper existence of service sector. The services recorded substantial growth as the country became globally competitive in ICT services, which increased exports manifold. And there is reallocation of labor to the high productive services, which is always necessary for the development of an economy. The services sector is the dominant sector in the India's GDP growth and also contributed noteworthy foreign investment. Many investors are coming in the Indian economy to invest in services sector. And now we have to discuss some particular services sector. Those are research and development, trade, hotel, restaurants, financing, insurance, retail sector, business services, community, social and personal services, services associated with construction. Now, the services sector of the economy can boost up the overall scenario of a nation. In recent years, we can see there is huge increase in services exports. In the pandemic situation, there was overall decline in the economy, but services sector stood different, and we can see a stable growth in this sector. In 2021-22, on account of enhanced revenue of the sector's farm, we can see a change in the growth pattern in the service sector. According to the Economic Survey 21-22, out of the overall service sector, India's key services subsectors as information technology and business process management services reached about $177 billion, and the Indian government spent about $1.5 billion on the space sector as well. So we are moving from very ground level to the space level as well. In India, we can see the development of tourism. As we have vast culture of different regions in our economy, the tourists are coming, and so tourism services developing, and it is contributing to 8% in the economy, in the GDP. And we can expect a huge rise in tourism sector. IT and ITES services are also expanding with the rise in ITES exports as well. Now, if we move to telecom services, we are going for 5G. And with the boom of telecom industry, with the technological development, as we move from 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now we are moving to 5G. So, we are expecting a huge rise in data-centric development in this particular sector. Now we are having 11 GB per subscriber per month data consumption, and we are expecting 18 GB per subscriber per month data consumption in the year 2024. So there is a huge boom in the telecom sector as well. The service sector in India has the maximum employment generation among all sectors. So it has the potential for great growth and the capability to provide highly productive job, thus resulting in revenue generation. To tackle the problem of job creation, government has initiated some programs. The Skill India program initiative aims to provide market-relevant skills to people. Skill building, capacity building is utmost necessary in this time. It aims to do this mainly to adopt the private sector's behavior and private sector initiatives in skill development programs, and by providing them with the necessary funding. Similarly, the Make in India initiative aims to boost the manufacturing sector in the economy, and thus will cause a multiplier effect in adding to the portfolio of the service sector. So growth of service sector will be disseminated to other sectors as well. Now, in overall, we can see some sectors are really booming, that is the telecommunication services, IT and IT-enabled services, thereafter the banking services, then the educational services, then the aviation and port services. And tourism services is also coming up with huge potential of employment and revenue generation. In COVID-19 period, we have seen dramatic fall in services across the globe. But in India, we have seen rise in services, digital services, cloud services, due to remote work, due to online education. In national education policy, we have taken the policy of online education as well. And in this regard, there must be a boom in digital services. Online banking is also there. Now, for online banking services, we need the digital platform. And in this regard, there is a huge scope for growth and employment generation in digital services and cloud services. So, in the green situation as well, the services sector stood robust and stable and helps the economy to move on from pandemic situation to the situation of recovery. Now, in case of community services, we are providing vaccines to a mass, and for that purpose, there is huge need of service sector. Health workers are doing their jobs, and we are moving to 100% vaccination through community services provided by this service sector. So, pharmaceutical industry is growing, that is manufacturing is growing, as well as the services in the health sector. In education field also, we can see the increase in the services from the side of the government and from side of the private sector as well. So, education and health, these two basic pillars of the economy, can be maintained through different services. And public services, water, sanitation, all are provided by the government through the services sector.